So far in the previous sections, we learned how to build a simple Gradio web application. We also learned about customizing components like different formats, exploring different formats like image, text, and tabular data. So in this section, we are going to learn how to use multiple inputs, not different types of inputs, but multiple inputs. So not every time you want to use only the same input, right? So for example, if you see here, you have one text box. If you see this example, you have a bigger text box. And if you see this example, you have got one image. But what if you are in a situation where you need to take multiple input from the user and you want to process it in such a way and then give some output? So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to make a simple function, just like our hello world example. And then we are also going to learn how to handle multiple inputs in a Gradio application. Once again, like I say in every section, you can always explore the documentation for this part, and it is quite comprehensive. And the examples that I've taken for this code is again from the documentation. So let's start from scratch. If you have not even seen that whatever we did before, so we are importing Gradio as gr. So that part is done. So the next thing is we need to create a function. We need to create a function that can do something. So what we can do in this case is we can say, let's calculate BMI. Okay. I don't necessarily know the formula for BMI, but I'm just going to take a shot. BMI, and let's say we want to take BMI for a person, and then we want to take height, and then we want to take weight. Okay. And then we are going to calculate BMI now. So, and then we are going to also thank the person based on the BMI. So the first thing that we need to do is let's get the BMI calculation, BMI formula, let's say, and then okay, basically it is weight divided by height square, and the height should be in kilograms, the weight should be in kilograms, and the height should be in meters. So what we can do is we can say, okay, first let's do the formula and then we can have a description. So BMI is equal to BMI val is equal to height weight divided by height square. Okay, use the parenthesis so that you don't have confusion about anything. So now that at this step we are calculating BMI, so we are going to say print, and then we're going to say hello, and the name of the person, which is in this case is name, plus something, and a new line, and your BMI is, and then we're going to say str of BMI val. Okay, let's run the function. Oh, I didn't return anything, right? So I should have ideally returned this, return this. Let's run this and then try to give the value. So I'm going to say one little coder, and the value which is 120, and then weight is like, let's say 50, and the BMI is 0.334. I have definitely messed up this formula, which is kilogram weight divided by height square, and height should be in meters, right? Height should be in meters in the sense 1 centimeters. Okay, 1.2 maybe. Yeah, so we have got a BMI, so approximately our formula works fine. So BMI part is done. So the next important step for us to do is, so make sure that you have 3 inputs and you have 1 output, right? So if you want 2 outputs, we can still do that, but right now we are exploring only 1 output. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, okay, interface is equal to Gradio interface of, and then we're going to say function is equal to BMI. That part is simple. Inputs is equal to, what are the inputs we want? The first thing that we want is a text input. The second thing we want is a checkbox. The second thing is, let's say in this case, a slider, maybe gr.inputs.slider, and the slider value goes from 0 to, let's say 100, and the label, if you want to add a label, say height. Okay, and then you're going to have another slider, and this slider is for weight in kg and height in meters. Okay, and this should be ideally 200, I think. Yeah, now this is done. The next thing is we need to define the output, and the output in this case is a simple text. We are not dealing with multiple items, so simple text should be fine. Define this, it's worked. Now interface dot launch. So technically you can actually do launch here also, like if you want, like if you don't want to define the interface in a separate step, you can do that. But yeah, just for the sake of explicitity, I'm just doing it here, and then I'm going to launch it. Once we launch it, again the same thing happens. So it says like debugging is equal to true, like all the same examples. So I've got a name, let's say name is one little coder, and then height is somewhere like this, weight is somewhere like this, weight in kilogram, height is let's say here, and then submit. You can see that the BMI has been calculated. Like forget about what the formula is doing right now at this point. Maybe what we can do is, it looks very ugly for us to show this thing, so maybe we can round it off. Then we have to import. Okay, I'm not dealing with rounding off at this point. So you have hello, the name, BMI, and then the value. So at this point you can see that we have successfully managed to get 3 inputs, and then we are also outputting 1 output. But what if you suddenly think, okay, instead of just having 3 inputs, let me have 1 more extra output. Okay, and now probably that output is something like as emoticon. Okay, if the BMI is less than this, let's say there is an emoticon. If the BMI is greater than this, let's say another emoticon. So result emoticon is equal to, again for simplicity, we can use, or I can actually use this. Okay, so just use happy face if BMI val is less than like maybe 30. I don't know, so don't take health advice from this. Otherwise keep a sad face. How do I keep a sad face? This is a sad face. Okay, this is a sad face. So now we have a result emoticon. So now what you can do is you can result this emoticon as well as part of this. So we have one, okay, we have one entire string. If you want to make it easier, you can see output string is equal to this. Okay, and then you have the emoticon. So I'm going to say output string and then result emoticon, and then I'm going to run this function. I'm going to call the function to see. Okay, so my BMI is terrible, so it's just giving me this sad option. So now I can come back again and then specify that my first output is a text. Again, I want to do text for the second output as well, right? But if you want a different output, you can still do it. But in my case, I want text output as well. So run it, come back here, launch it again. And once you launch it, it's going to give you the application. And then you can see, okay, name is let's say Mars, maybe. Height and okay, just and weight is 58 something, 60. Submitted, and then you can see it's a happy face. The reason we have a happy face is primarily because the BMI is less than 30. So if I go back to the same example, like for example, height should be in meters, right? I should have ideally divided this because height is in centimeters. Let me add centimeters and then divide the height by 2. Okay, height by 100. Okay, run this and then try the code. Run this, try the code. Why am I getting okay, it's because of order of precedence. My code is getting messier with all the parentheses, but that's okay. So now I have defined height in centimeters, weight in kilograms, and come back and launch it again. Then maybe this time we can say Mars and Jupiter, other names. Height in centimeters. Okay, I didn't give centimeters. It didn't get updated. That's okay. Submitted. Okay, the app did not refresh one last time. Let's refresh this, launch it, and height in centimeters. Yeah, one little coder, height in centimeters 160, and then when you say BMI is 32 and you are sad, when your BMI is less, okay, you're still sad. Okay, let's reduce the weight, and then ideally now you're happy because your BMI is less than 30. So technically we have managed to build an application with 2 outputs. Again, if you want to change the like name of the output. Again, that's something that you can change within your output as well. So basically what we have managed to do here is we have taken multiple inputs and we have done multiple outputs. And this is quite important, because in a lot of cases, for example, let's say you're doing neural style transfer. Usually for neural style transfer you would have multiple inputs and one output. So you need to know how to do multiple inputs and multiple outputs, and that's quite simple. You have to match the number of arguments that you're getting in your function with the number of inputs, and all you have to do is the type of input. So one of your input could be a slider, one of your input could be a text, another input could be a number, another input could be an image. So you can have these multiple formats as well. It's not just like numbers and all these things. Like for example, let's say like suddenly we are deciding that we want to add a checkbox, okay, and I want to add something new, that is feeling, okay, and based on feeling I want to say something, okay. So we'll say if feeling is true, okay, then we'll do text is equal to happy, okay, and we are going to send feeling also, sorry, text, we have to send the text, okay. Now this one I'm going to make a boolean out of it, okay. And how do I make a boolean out of it, or a checkbox? So my last attribute here is gr.inputs.check. Did I get checkbox? Yes, checkbox. And you can see when I want to make a checkbox, I have to specify default is false, right? Default is false, and the label is you're feeling today, and then everything else is fine. So we have the text as well. So we have the third text. Run it, run the function again, and then launch it. Now at this point, technically you should have one extra checkbox. So checkbox is selected, something height, weight, selected. There is an error. There is an error. And what is the error? Okay, so we have got 3 inputs, 1 2 3 4. I got 4 inputs, 1 2 3 4. Okay, I think the problem is because if, okay, let me even do this. Text is equal to if feeling else sad, okay, and let me run this and then try with this. So we have 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. Okay, that's done. And then let's run this, let's launch, and then let's see this thing. So let's see if we can get rid of the error. It's successfully worked, right? So you have output 1, output 2, output 3, and then you can disable the feeling and then run it again, you get sad. So basically you have managed to add a new type of input without any problem. So you have multiple types of input, multiple formats of input, and also multiple formats and types of output. That is done. So because we have got a bug, maybe this is a very good opportunity for us to try out the debugging option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the same mistake that we did before, and the mistake was just using like this, right? So this was a mistake that we had, and there is a way for us to identify using this. For example, we can do like this, but if it is false, it would probably throw an error, like you can see the error. But let's forget this kind of debugging for a moment, and then let's see if we can find a way to debug here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say debug is equal to true, and then launch it here. Did it just say, okay, sorry, I have to add debug is equal to launch, so that was silly of me. So I'm going to do debug is equal to launch. When I do this thing, it's going to launch with the debugging option. Okay, so it says this cell will run indefinitely, so that you can see the errors and logs. So if you want to turn it off again, you have to go back and then say debug is equal to false. So what we are going to do now is we are going to say something, and then we are going to select some value, and then click. So your value is Good. So you have got all the output. The problem arises when you have false value. And when you submit now, there is an error. Okay. So you can see that there is an error. Now that error, because we have enabled debugging mode, that error is displayed here, which wouldn't have been displayed otherwise. So now you can see the error local variable text reference before assignment. So which means it's saying like it's the same error that you would get when you are doing like a REPL or a interactive environment. So this will again help you to debug. So I've just taken the liberty of making a mistake to explain you that that this is there. So all I can do is I can just add an else, or I can just go with list comprehension, then fix this, come back again in debugging mode, right? Come back again in debugging mode, do interface, and you can see all these are not running because this launch is still running. So I'm going to stop it, everything is ran, and then run this again, and then try this out. But now the debugging mode is still true. So you have the modes set. True is happy, done, and false is error again because we didn't run it. So ideally you understand the point. The point here is once you have a mistake or a bug, an error, it's very important for you to debug it the same interface that you have. You don't want to juggle between a lot of different interfaces. So the easiest option for you to do that is debug is equal to true. So once you do debug is equal to true, then you will be able to debug the file. So we'll have a slightly extended debug session in the next section, but if you simply want to debug, this is your way to debug. So in this section we just learned how to improve our Gradio web application with multiple inputs, multiple outputs, same format, different format, and we also played around with a bunch of options for us to see how it works. And we also made a deliberate mistake to understand how do we go about debugging. So in the next section, we'll also learn slight extension of how more to debug or log what is happening there.